So let's get to this issue of affordability. Why is New York City so expensive? It has the highest taxes in the country, always in competition with California and specifically LA. It has more regulations than anybody can keep track of. Whether you're a pizzeria, whether you're an Uber driver, whether you're a plumber or an electrician, the regulations are smothering. They have rent control. So for those people who live in rent control apartments, it's great. It's great. Pay $800 a month for an apartment that should be $6,000 a month. It's great. But how do you expect developers to build affordable apartments and condominiums when there's rent control in place? They're not going to do it. They're going to build more luxury than anything else to bypass the rent control and to sell to wealthy people. So what happens? What does rent control actually do? It makes housing for people who have average incomes less and less affordable, and in some areas, unaffordable. That's government policy. What drives up the cost of food in New York City? Taxes. Taxes on the people who sell the food, taxes on restaurants, taxes on delicatessens and pizzerias. Taxes drive up the price of food. And regulations. Property taxes on the brick and mortar stores, regulations, taxes. That's why food is so expensive in New York City. Why is it more expensive in New York City than, say, in New Jersey or Connecticut? Because of the government. That's why. And then the personnel requirements, the union requirements, or even the non-union requirements. You have to fill out paperwork constantly in the private sector just to make sure you're not a bigot. You're not discriminating against people. And then they impose extra high minimum wage. So if you want to do something, but you have a little store and you can't afford to do it because of this extra high minimum wage, you're not going to do it because the expenses are too high. Affordability. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to affordability, I don't think of Marxism or economic socialism. Do you? I don't think of government. Do you? And so now the word affordability is being used by and stolen by the people who make things unaffordable. Unaffordable. Now you need to compare something to something. So when you have a guy like Mamdani and his ilk campaigning on a agenda of paradise, on absolute equality, you need to compare it to something to bring it back to earth. Now, the way the Marxist Islamists work, like Mamdani and these others, society is imperfect. That's not news to you, is it? People are imperfect. I think we all know that, don't we? But what do? They seize on the imperfections in society to blame it on the capitalist system, or on Republicans, or on individual liberty, or on the Constitution, or on whatever they want to blame it on. The reason you can't afford a home is because of they perfected the art of finger pointing. Capitalism, billionaires, this one over here, Jews. That's why. It's easy to understand these things, even though they are absolute bullcrap. It's easy to understand them. And if you're somebody who needs an excuse, somebody who wants some kind of justification that doesn't point to yourself, if you're somebody who wants some kind of answer, why is everybody against me? Why can't I make it? Why can't I? They have the answer. Don't improve yourself. You must destroy all these obstacles. Capitalism. When it comes to affordability, what do they talk about? Equality. There must be equality. Well, you can have equality. Cambodia, they worked very hard to have equality. They eliminated 25% of the population. Anybody who was super educated, lawyers, doctors, anybody who opposed the incoming Pol Pot regime, anybody who's anybody that doesn't look the right way needs to be eliminated. So equality, even the two peasants in the rice fields with baskets, hand-picking the rice. There's not perfect equality in those baskets, and people paid a price for it. Equality. Equality that's not properly understood is totalitarianism. It's genocide. Think about your own life. Think about who you are. Who are you equal with when it comes to your motivations and your interests? Those are personal. Those are things that are part of your brain, your heart, and your soul, what motivate you. Maybe you'll work harder in school. Maybe you'll work harder to make a buck. Maybe you'll save your money and you won't spend your money like somebody else will. Maybe you've decided to have a family and raise a large family, 4, 5, 6 kids. Maybe you've decided to stay single. How can you possibly be equal when your interests, your motivations, or even your accidents in life take you in this direction but take somebody else in this direction? So how do you make those people equal? Force, coercion, brutality. Those people need to change. That's how you make it equal. Well, what are they to change into? Whatever the state says they need to change into. That's the communal. We've decided what's necessary for the best interests of the many. Well, did we ask the many? No. After the first election, we don't ask anybody anything, even if there is no election. We do it in the name of the people. We do it, we call it democracy. We call it equality. Maybe now we'll call it equity. But you shall perform in jobs that we give you in the way that we tell you. And if you don't have toilet paper, if you don't have 3 square meals, if you want to take a vacation, you want to do all these things, you're the enemy of the state. Marx talks about this. Individualism and free will are a poison to the communal. Communism, the communal. Individualism and free will are poison. They must be destroyed. Social constructs that have existed outside the communist regime, including the family, the church, the synagogue, whatever it is, business association, all must be eliminated, annihilated. There cannot be competing social structures that undermine the paradise that we seek to create, whether it's a worker's paradise or absolute equality, get rid of billionaires, all the rest of it. It's undermining, it is an obstacle to what we seek to achieve. It must be destroyed, which means the Bill of Rights must be destroyed. The constitutional construct, separation of powers, must be destroyed. Ultimately, now in so-called democracies, we have a republic, but we'll call them the same for our purposes, even though there's a distinction. For so-called democracies, this doesn't happen all at once, it's gradual. So we call ourselves democratic socialists. Oh, I love it. Democratic socialists. How can you have democratic socialism when the government calls the shots? This guy Mamdani says he wants to seize the means of production. That comes straight out of the Communist Manifesto. Seize the means of production. Let me ask you a question. When you're redistributing wealth, what does that do to the people who create wealth? Does it incentivize them to create wealth or more wealth? It does the opposite. It destroys wealth. And so the circle of wealth to redistribute becomes narrower and narrower and narrower. Particularly in New York City, if I can leave New York City and go to Florida or go to Nashville, Tennessee, or whatever, where I don't have all these requirements, all this stuff imposed on me, the interference with my lifestyle, my liberty, my entrepreneurship, I'm going to leave. Problem is, in a country, it's harder to leave. But in a city or a state, it's easier to leave, isn't it? Capitalism is a godsend. For the Marxists, it must be destroyed. It must be destroyed. Redistributing wealth destroys the creation of wealth because the people who create it are not going to want to create it anymore, or they're going to want to create it somewhere else. So what will happen in New York if this happens? New York will further depopulate. That is, the productive people, the hardworking people, people on pensions and so forth. They're going to leave. They're going to leave. Businesses are going to leave. So who's going to have the jobs then? What's going to expand? The welfare state, the freebies. And who will replace the productive taxpayers? Whether you're of lower middle class, or a billionaire. Who's going to replace them? People from all over the country who want more welfare benefits, and people from all over the world who are welcomed in a sanctuary city because they immediately get to participate in the welfare system, which will be the biggest, most generous welfare system on the face of the earth, certainly in the country. Well, how's that going to work? So the productive people leave. The people who create the wealth that you want to redistribute, they leave. The people who find it unaffordable, they leave. So who's left? A destroyed city. So equality in itself, if that's the goal, you will have neither equality nor liberty. You will have neither equality nor liberty. Equality without liberty is fascism, Marxism, it's totalitarianism. Equality in and of itself does not promote liberty, does it? Equality in and of itself doesn't promote rights, does it?
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.